Okay, let's talk about the Warriors, who found out today that Steph is going to be missing a couple of weeks with a shoulder injury. At first, it seemed scarier than that. Still not good, but not as bad as it could be, right? And sometimes I feel like we take Steph for granted just because of how amazing he is, but like watching Steph flow in this offense, it's just art, man. And he's just such a well rounded player at this point. I mean, he's averaging 7 rebounds and 7 assists, on top of all the gravity assists as well that we can't count, but you can see them when you're watching the games. But we got to talk about the rest of the team, of course. And they've had the injury bug a bit. Wiggins and Clay missed their last game that they lost to the Pacers. Draymond, Steph, and Wiggins were out for their recent game against the Jazz. As of where they are right now, they're 10th in the West, 14 and 15. They've lost 4 of 5. Before that, they were on a run. I mean, ever since they sent Wiseman to the G League, it seemed like that did fix a good amount of their problems, just because Wiseman, I mean, the potential's there, but in terms of not fouling and just having fundamentals defensively and being in the read and react Warriors offense, it just wasn't looking great for him, right? But besides their recent Celtics game, which was great, and their defense on Tatum was awesome, I mean, there were plays where, early in the game, Clay blocks Tatum on a cut, or Anthony Lamb and Steph double Tatum underneath the basket. He's pretty overwhelmed. Or one where Kuminga funneled Tatum into JaMychal Green, who had a really good vertical contest. Like, their defense was kind of amazing in that game on Tatum. They made him, I think, take or settle really for some jump shots. Besides that, it's been a little rough in the last 2 games. One against the Pacers where there was one play where Jordan Poole gambled on a pass that became a Nesmith 3. And then Jordan Poole's like looking around like, what are we doing? And it's like, that was kind of your guy, man. Halliburton had a couple of plays where it just didn't seem like there was a lot of resistance, where like he'd get a handoff action and then I think it was like Moses Moody switched onto him, but it was like a little slow and there was like no rim protection at all. And part of that was because Looney was kind of sticking to Miles Turner for some of that game. Mathurin also had a couple of tough threes, which, okay, that's going to happen sometimes, but there was also one play where he beat Anthony Lamb on a drive, and I think DiVincenzo was the main help guy on it, and it was just like, well, this is not a lot of size to finish through. Against the Bucks, so Giannis actually gave them a bit of a break because he took a million jump shots, with which he missed most of them. He still had like 17 free throw attempts because you just can't keep Giannis off the line. And I do think the Warriors also had some trouble guarding actions where guards would screen for Giannis as opposed to like Brook Lopez, I guess. Bobby Portis dropped like 25 on him, and a couple of plays where he would end up like switched onto Jordan Poole or Dante DiVincenzo, which basically meant, it's an easy post up for Bobby Portis. There was also one play, because I'm just obsessed with calling out random plays like this, that was a little alarming, where it was like Looney dropped on a Grayson Allen Giannis handoff action, which is normal because you don't want to give Giannis just an easy roll to the rim. But then Grayson Allen got an easy drive where I think it was Jordan Poole who just kind of died on the screen, and Looney was caught up with Giannis. There was no help, and I'm just like, okay, that was not good. Of course, tough shot making is always going to make a difference. Like, for example, the Andrew Nemhard game on December 5th, where he dropped 30, made a bunch of just tough threes, and Steph had just a weird shooting night that you don't expect very often. Like, yeah, there's going to be some weirdness in there. They also have had 2 Pelicans games where they sat basically everybody. So it's not as if it's disaster mode or anything for this team, but it just hasn't been great, and, Steph is out now for a bit, so yeah. It just seems like this defense in general isn't consistent enough, even if they still have their moments. There's something to talk about with the offense, sure, a lot of it being when Steph is in game, good. When Steph not in game, not good. Although, just to speak on the bench starters thing, so recently they've had Draymond playing more with the second unit. Their second unit hasn't struggled as much since then. So when he's out there with, let's say, DiVincenzo, Jordan Poole, Kuminga, Moses Moody, JaMychal Green, like whatever combination you want to put out there pretty much. So the seeds are already being planted for you to be optimistic. It's just, then Steph goes down with a shoulder injury, and now it's like, okay, let's see. And, they didn't have Wiggins for those last couple as well, and Wiggins matters. But, they also had Wiggins in that Dallas game, and Luka was able to cook, and yeah, he had some tough step backs. He had a tough pull-up in transition. He also had a play late where he gets by Wiggins, then it's kind of a relatively easy turnaround jumper. Steph was there, but he wasn't totally there. If anything, I think Kuminga might have done the best job on Luka in that game, and more on him in a little bit. It just seems like this defense right now is like not bad, which is not the Warriors formula, right? Like last season, they were the best defense in the league. Maybe they ended up number 2 in the advanced stuff by the time the Celtics were done with the regular season, but still, they were defense first last year. Their offense was good. I mean, outside of Steph being amazing. Now, to be nice, a few things. Number 1, the starting lineup has still, for the most part, been fine. which I think is to say, like, look, is Clay's absolute peak defensively behind him? Like, yeah, probably. But it's not like he's terrible there or anything. And as for Draymond, he's still a big positive on defense. Number 2, again, it got better once Wiseman went to the G League. Number 3, they've had injuries recently. Although that's not a good thing, but it shows that when they're healthy, it could still be there, you know? And so you look at the roster and it's like, okay, what do they need? I think they could use a point of attack defender. I do think they've missed Gary Payton II a bit. I think they could use probably just a solid two-way wing. Granted, everybody could use that. I think they could also use another big. I know that Jakob Poeltl has been a pretty popular name amongst Warriors fans. I think there was a rumor that said they were interested in him, and I think there was another that said that the Spurs are not really interested in James Wiseman, and I guess that can lead to the James Wiseman thing. So if you want to do the Warriors trade conversation, I mean, you quickly just get to Wiseman, and it just becomes the most awkward thing in the world because I don't think there would be many teams, if any other team, where you're like, do you trade the second overall pick of a couple years ago for the sake of solidifying your rotation? But as we know, this team's window is right now because of Steph's age. So I don't know what happens there. I think they need to make a move, but they also just don't have a million trade assets. They have some picks they can move at the tail end of this decade for what that's worth. The other thing, too, is if they're going to take somebody on, if that guy has got free agency coming up in a couple years, that might give the front office hesitance because if they want to re-sign the dude, I mean, as we know, this team is insanely expensive. Anyway, let's talk about moving forward. So Kuminga has done some things recently, mainly the recent Jazz game, where he had a number of physical drives that looked awesome. He also had some plays where there was one where he ran a pick and pop with, I want to say it was Jordan Poole, and then he drove and then he spun off of, I want to say it was Walker Kessler around the free throw line, hit him with this like acrobatic right-handed layup. He had a great post move that was basically led to a spin and then a dunk. I don't remember who it was on. In the Bucks game, he had a great play where Brook Lopez was just super sagging off of him and he just kind of took the space and then built up momentum, got a layup on him. The three ball has been better recently. And it does seem like he's pulling off more of the Warriors offense-esque plays, if you will. Like one play against the Pacers in their last one where he hands it off to Steph as Steph is running to the corner. And then he screens for him, and then the shot isn't really there. Kuminga then rolls, and he finds Anthony Lamb underneath the basket for a bounce pass. Just those read and react situations, right? And they're going to need as much of that as they can with Steph out here. I'm going to make a hot take right now. It would be ideal for them to be healthy, especially while Steph is out. Besides that, hey, listen, man, this is my finals pick, and so far it's been kind of awkward, so I don't know what that means.